So what happens when we take time off? People are going to fear that they're not going to be as strong when they come back. But for those neurological components, if you've been training for a decent period of time, you've gotten pretty proficient in the lifts, you're not going to forget how to do it. Your body will remember. Welcome back to the Lifting Cues podcast, the podcast for lifters, brought to you by Fifth Power Fitness. I'm your host, Coach Quinn, aka Coach Q, owner and founder of Fifth Power Fitness, 5 Powers, 1 U, online fitness coaching to help you take your life to that fifth power and reach that next level. And today we're going to be talking about detraining because it's been on my mind. Obviously, I have not been training. I didn't train for about 3 weeks with a bicep tear injury and surgery 2 weeks ago. So I hadn't gotten back in the gym for 3 weeks. You get to thinking about how much muscle am I going to lose? How much strength am I going to lose? What is this detraining going to do? What does this do to me mentally? So we'll go through each of the 5 powers addressing kind of detraining. There's a lot of misconceptions around detraining. It's one of the biggest things I hear all the time. People are going to miss a week in the gym, or they're going on vacation and they don't have access to a gym, or just want to take a break from working out. They're like, oh, I'm going to lose all my gains. I'm going to be weak when I come back. I'm going to lose all my muscle, blah, blah, blah. And it's really not the case. So we'll break that down step by step for strength, for muscle, what you should do with your nutrition when you're not training. Should it be different? Should it be the same? And then psychologically, and those action steps that you can take to maintain your fitness and a healthy mindset, even when you're not able to work out. If you're somebody like me, who I put a lot of my routine, my lifestyle, my mental health into what I'm able to do physically. So when you have to strip that away, what is left for you? That's a big piece of what I'm going to focus on with that psychological component, because I thought I would be okay with not moving, but once you go 3 weeks without exercise, and then once I added it back in, something happened in my brain and my body that was a total game changer. So I think finding certain ways to move are going to be really big, even in times of detraining for whatever reason, whether, like I said, it's injury, it's travel, it's life. We're going to have periods of time where maybe we're not going to be able to make it to the gym, but what can we do to make sure that fitness is still a part of our lifestyle and movement is still a part of our lifestyle? So with that, let's get into strength. Strength is a 3-part process. There's motor skill development, learning the movements, being able to complete the movements in a proficient way, understanding how to move your body, how your body feels in space. Those basic motor skills you need to move and complete a lift. Next is the neurological component. This is your ability to transfer force from your muscle to your tendon to your bone to make your joints move. That ability to transfer force is the neurological component, and to be able to fire those muscles at the right time under load. That neurological component is a big piece. And then we have muscular force, the actual force you're able to produce is determined by the size of your muscles. So the bigger the muscle, the more potential, the more contractile tissue it has, so the more force it can produce. Those are the 3 things that go into building strength. So what happens when we take time off? People are going to fear that they're not going to be as strong when they come back. But for those neurological components, if you've been training for a decent period of time, you've gotten pretty proficient in the lifts, you're not going to forget how to do it. Your body will remember. You won't lose that piece of it. When you come back that first week after detraining, I guess I should define what detraining actually is too. So detraining, from most of the research that we see, real effects of detraining don't really happen until at least 3 to 4 weeks. Training is not taking a week off to go on vacation. It's not taking a week off because your back is bothering you. It's not doing those kind of things. A week or 2, you can basically, really nothing's going to happen. It actually might be good for you depending on how long you've been training. And your detraining period will probably be determined by your previous training experience and level. If you've been training for years, you can probably get away with up to a month off before you see any detrimental effects, maybe even up to 6 to 8 weeks. If you've been training for a long time, if you're pretty new to it and you've been training for a few months, it's going to be a little bit harder. That detraining period will be accelerated. Also, if you're older and more susceptible to things like muscle loss, moving your body is a little bit more difficult. Learning the movements is a little bit more difficult. That detraining period will be accelerated. If you're a little bit older, for younger people, it's probably going to be less because your ability to maintain muscle mass and movement is much easier. Those are a couple of caveats for when I'm talking about detraining. What am I really talking about? We see this in studies on strength, that you don't see significant declines in strength before 3 to 4 weeks because the motor skills and neurological patterns are ingrained in us. As we'll see in the next section with muscle, muscle doesn't decrease really as fast as you will think. A lot of people think they're just going to shrivel up if they don't train. I used to be this way for a long time. It took a while to get that out of my head. And it took times like this of not training for significant periods, a week, 2, 3 weeks. It doesn't happen often for me, but when it does, I see that when I come back, it's not as difficult to train, or the strength comes back much quicker. And I sometimes feel even better. Your joints feel better. You get that recovery. So we'll talk about that as well. But when it comes to strength, we're not going to lose anything in the first 3. When you come back after 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be pretty difficult, but you're going to be okay. If we get past that 4-week period, then that process will probably start to accelerate a little bit faster with strength. No further we get from training, the more difficult that it's going to be to get back to those motor skills and pick those back up. The neurological patterns will decrease, but the adaptation to load will decrease. A load will feel heavier. Say you could squat 400 pounds and then you took a month off. That 400 pounds is going to feel much heavier after a month if you can even do it. You might have to start back a little bit further. Detraining is a longer process than you think it is, especially when it comes to strength. When we get back to training after, say, 3 weeks, a month off, you don't want to assume that you're going to be fine and you should just jump right back into what you were doing before. You want to cut that weight by 75%. So whatever you were doing before, cut that weight by 75% for the first week, or cut it to 75% of that weight. Cut that weight down significantly. Have a transition week to get back into it, get those motor skills developed, knock that rust off, and not get overly sore when you come back. Then you can start to progress quicker, but you will see that it will come back much faster. One of the things that we can do in periods of detraining and just time off in general to make sure that we find ways to maintain strength is maintenance techniques. So I think this is important for people who, like I said, you're traveling, you have some sort of injury. I think this other part is important, is that you need to continue to think about your fitness and your movement and your body. This isn't for people who go to the gym for 6 weeks and then you fall off for 6 weeks. And then you go to the gym for 6 weeks and then you fall off for 6 weeks because you're not keeping that fitness on the top of your mind. That detraining period will be accelerated for you. But if you can use some of these maintenance techniques, it can be really good. One of the things is mental visualization of the movements. So thinking about your squat, or even doing body weight versions of exercises just to move your body, feel your muscles, feel your body move in space, understand that visualization process of you squatting. You can think about that movement pattern. Your body will remember how to do it. It'll make those connections in your body to your brain so that you have those movement patterns when you get back to it and it's not quite as rusty. You understand exactly how that weight is supposed to move and how that lift is supposed to be completed. So you can visualize your lifts if you can, for whatever reason. I probably watched, I don't know how many videos of me lifting at the powerlifting meet I got hurt at, just thinking back to that moment and enjoying it. But I think watching those videos probably helps me as well to be able to maintain that movement and I've been doing this for a long time, so I know those aren't going to go away. I'm never going to forget how to squat. I think it should be ingrained in me pretty much by now, but those kind of lifts, like especially in my upper body, like my upper body is going to be detrained for a very significant period of time. I'm in an immobilized brace. I can't use my right arm. It'll be going on a month that I haven't used my right arm for basically anything. So there's going to be a steep learning curve when I get back to upper body training, but I'm still thinking about how do I do movements? Obviously, working in the gym, seeing people do movements, I'm able to visualize those things and mentally take reps whenever I get a chance to. That's going to be a big part of it, keeping that mental space for movement and understanding it. Also, another one is good, isometric contractions. So this is good for things like injuries. If, your knee is bothering you or elbow, something like that, you can do isometric work. So just holding positions, sitting at the bottom of a squat, coming down on the bench press, holding the bar like an inch away, just contracting those muscles. If it hurts to push through full ranges of motion, using the isometrics can be great. It can help strengthen tendons and build that mind-muscle connection of where your body needs to contract. If you want to learn more about isometric connections, check out the website, fifthpowerfitness.com. There's a free ebook on there about progressive overload where I talk about how isometric contractions can help you progress. Go ahead and download that ebook, check out the part about isometric contractions, and check out the whole part about progressive overload. This is brought to you by Fifth Power Fitness, but that's a good one. And then, like I touched on, the neurological activation strategies, just doing body weight exercises, squats, push-ups, pull-ups, those kind of things to keep those neurological patterns and that transfer of force, that ability to move your body. Just being able to do some of that is going to be good. Don't let fitness out of your life. We are training. Sometimes you do need that break. We're not getting completely away from fitness. This is not for falling completely off the wagon. And if you let that out of your brain completely, it's so much easier to fall off that wagon. If you need to not train for up to a month, maybe even a month and a half, if you're a very advanced trainee, don't worry. You're going to be okay. Your strength is going to be fine. It's going to take a week or two to get it back, but it will come back very quickly because those neurological patterns are built, because those motor skills are developed. You'll need to knock the rust off, but it will come back much quicker than if you haven't trained at all and you're just starting out. That's going to take a little bit more time. The longer that you have trained previously, the more experienced you are, the more muscle mass that you have, the more reps you have in your bag, the better off you will be, the longer you can go and still be able to pretty much maintain your strength. Also, the younger you are, the easier it will be as well. If you follow the rest of the tips throughout this podcast, you're going to be in much better shape. All right, so let's talk about muscle, because everyone thinks that they are going to immediately lose muscle and just shrink if they stop training. The people that I talk to, it's not as common with the general population, but I think this one is maybe even more understood than strength, because I really think that muscle stays even longer than strength, and that seems to bear out in the research that you will be able to maintain muscle for a much longer period of time. Muscle memory is a real thing, so it will also come back quicker. A couple of studies to highlight. There's one from Starin et al., 1991. This study was actually pretty cool. They took college-aged women. These women completed 20 weeks of lower body training, followed by 30 to 32 weeks of detraining. So that is a very long period of time to not be training. And following the detraining phase, their lean mass, glute circumference, type 1, type 2 fibers, cross-sectional area of the quad didn't significantly change. That's really interesting. Now, I don't know a lot about these college-age women. They may have been athletes, just women that were training, but 20 weeks of training and 30 to 32 weeks of not training, and not a significant difference in muscle mass. Doesn't mean it didn't decrease, but it didn't decrease significantly. So that's a really cool study. And I think this next one is even cooler, by Correa et al. This was in 2016. So this was in an older population. So they took sedentary older women. This was a small population, only 12 people. They did 12 weeks of strength training, 1 year of detraining, and then 12 weeks of retraining. So the strength training was only performed twice a week, and they assessed strength 4 times, once at the beginning, once after the strength training period, once after the detraining period, and once after the retraining. So they did knee extensor and elbow flexor strength, so a leg extension and a bicep curl. They measured the rectus femoris muscle and function. Very interesting study, especially in older people. Only 12 weeks of training, a year off, and then 12 weeks of retraining. They did see significant strength, function, muscle decreases. But what was really interesting is after that 12-week period, when they came back and did the retraining, they saw similar gains in muscle and strength, even after being off for a year. They were able to make those gains back in that same 12-week period, which is really cool. If you take a year off, you're going to lose some strength and muscle. It has to happen, especially in an older population. But to know that you can get it back in the same 12 weeks would be really great. So I think that's really cool that they were able to do that, and just go to show that muscle mass can be maintained in periods of detraining, and that muscle memory and that strength memory allows it to come back quickly, especially if you were probably more trained than that older population. You could take more time off and be able to come back even quicker. If we understand how the muscle develops and works, it helps to understand why you're able to maintain that muscle. When you place tension on the muscle, when you strength train, when you progressively overload and force the muscle to adapt, what happens is there's contractile fibers that make up the muscle. And that's why when you flex your bicep, it goes up, because those fibers are going over each other. When you place more stress on the muscle, it signals cellular response to build more muscle fiber, to build more contractile tissue, to be able to produce more force. Your body is actually adding cells, adding tissue, which is not just going to go away. So that process is happening. So there is cellular changes in your body that are adding mass. There is a mechanism to break down amino acids and muscle into energy, but it's not a very efficient process. The process of gluconeogenesis, breaking muscle down into its amino acids and then into glucose for fuel, is not something that the body is very efficient at doing. It's going to pull from other fuel sources first. It's going to pull from your glycogen stores. It's going to pull from your fat stores rather than taking that muscle away. That's why the process of muscle atrophy is much longer. And if you've ever noticed, if you've taken a week, 2 weeks off of training and you look much flatter and think you've lost muscle because you look smaller, that is probably just a result of your body not storing as much glycogen in the muscle, your blood flow being slightly restricted to the muscles. When you lift weights consistently and you have the pump, that blood flow, and there's plasma and stuff that goes into the muscle that makes it look fuller. So you can lose that fuller look by not training, but you haven't actually lost muscle mass. When you start to train again and get a pump and have that inflammatory response, then you'll see the muscles will fill back up. You fill that glycogen back up because the muscles need that energy. It's not actually a loss of muscle mass. It just may look that way. I think that's something to keep in mind as well, is that you're not losing muscle mass quite as fast as you think. It is very similar with strength and muscle. You probably won't see any significant loss in muscle mass if you've been training for a decent amount of time and you're not of older age. I'd say probably this would be more in the 6 to 8 week period where you start to really lose muscle. I think you could probably go about a month and a half if, you keep your diet right, you continue to move enough. I think you can do those kind of things, trying to do whatever you can in that detraining period. We'll talk about those preservation strategies. I think that's where the muscle mass, you'll start to really see that decline. So what can you do in that 6-week period to maintain as much muscle as possible? Increasing your protein intake would be great to do in this period because muscle breakdown is going to happen, but you're not going to be breaking down muscle for fuel. If you can continue to push those amino acids to it, the muscles will continue to keep bringing those in. It'll also allow more room for that gluconeogenesis process if your body needs amino acids for fuel for whatever reason. But if you're not training, it really shouldn't, as long as you're eating a decent amount of carbs and fats, keeping the protein high, doing whatever sort of range of motion exercises that you can, even those isometrics, just moving the body in whatever way you can, especially if you have an injury, figuring out whatever range of motion is working so that you can continue to get contractions in the muscle, blood flow to the muscle, an inflammatory response, getting amino acids there, getting glucose there. That will all help, especially if you have an injured area and you just can't train it, doing whatever range of motion you can, doing the other side of the body. My right arm is done, but I'm going to continue to lift my left side. There is some cross-sectional and an inflammatory response that will partition nutrients to all of the muscles in the body. With my arm completely immobilized, that atrophy process is going to accelerate strongly. So that's where you're more in the 3 to 4 weeks. I didn't really notice it until about 3 weeks. And then I looked at my arm and I went, oh shit, it got really small. So it was about 3 weeks to really start to notice that atrophy of basically not moving my arm at all. So that's where that's at. If you can move it in any way and you can move the rest of your body without too much pain, then you're good to go. The volume that you need to maintain muscle mass is extremely low. I'm pretty sure there's at least one study that shows 1/9 of the volume that you are doing to build the muscle is enough to maintain your muscle mass. Even if it's a busy period of life or you're traveling for a long time, if you can find a way to do 1/9 of the volume that you were doing to build your muscle mass, you will be able to maintain it for a significant period. That means even body weight exercises can help you maintain that muscle mass. If you can get into a gym for 20 minutes and get one set for each muscle group, you'll at least be able to maintain your muscle mass and maintain that movement pattern, maintain the mind-muscle connection, possibly maintain a pump if you're training hard enough in that shortened period of time. So a lot of those things can really help you there. But main thing I want you to focus on is not to be super anxious about losing muscle mass. It seems to be a very difficult process. You'll probably lose less muscle mass than you think. Your body wants to hang on to that muscle. It is metabolically expensive tissue, but as long as you are fueling yourself properly, the process of turning muscle into fuel is very difficult. So your body will try to hang on to that. Also, don't worry about getting flat. That will come back very quickly. That's not actual muscle mass. That is just things that make you look fuller. It's more fluid, blood, plasma, glucose. So don't worry too much about that. Trying to do whatever you can in that period of time, even if it's body weight exercises, limited range of motion, those isometrics, continue to do that and maintain that positive mindset, doing what you can to build mind-muscle connection so the body tries to hang on to as much muscle mass as you can. We talked about nutrition as well. We want to be able to strategically fuel as well. So we don't want to fall off of everything. We can't let, our training go down, our nutrition go down, and the rest of our lifestyle go down. So we need to strategically fuel to maintain as much muscle mass as we can. And I think this also helps you mentally as well of, okay, I'm not able to train right now, but what can I do for my health, for myself right now? And it's being able to maintain that nutrition. So you're probably reduce calories a little bit, somewhere less than 10% of maintenance. 10% decrease from maintenance. I wouldn't really go much further than that, just because unless you're really trying to lose weight, but again, you want to make sure that you have enough protein, that you have enough carbohydrates so that your body's using those for fuel, enough healthy fats so your body can use that for fuel, just hormone levels, all of those things. So you want to make sure that you're able to get enough nutrition in, especially if it's an injury. You're taking some time off of training and maybe you want to lose some weight, or you just want to keep your calories lower because that feels better. That's fine as long as you can keep your protein high. But I think for an injury, you want your body to be fueled so that it has the fuel to recover and support the rest of your body. I wouldn't drop calories too low, but a reduction in activity will reduce calorie output. We don't want to gain fat when we're not training. You shouldn't be relying on your training to get you in a calorie deficit. We should be able to maintain it, but even reducing it a little bit more just so that we're not putting on any quote unquote bad weight would be better. Making sure you keep that protein high. It should be around 1 gram per pound of body weight. Low as we want to go is probably about 0.7, but I'd probably bump it up as high as you can from wherever you're at now. So you have that maintenance level of protein. I would probably increase it when you're not training just to give yourself the best chance. It benefits your metabolism, benefits your body composition, and it will help with the retention of muscle mass. Think about that. Making sure that we're eating whole, nutritious, possibly anti-inflammatory type of foods. The inflammatory one, I think you should try to do that, but that's going to differ from person to person. Don't eat a bunch of things that are bad for you personally. Don't to live off of processed foods. Try to eat more whole foods, get plenty of nutrition to make sure you're feeling good, your body is working properly. Again, that you're doing those healthy things for yourself and getting plenty of micronutrients to support your body. Nutrition is not going to do everything, but we might as well do one thing that we can for ourselves while we can't train and do everything we can to maintain as much of our muscle mass, body composition, our mental health as possible. So following the healthiest diet that you can during periods of detraining will benefit you in the long run when you return to training. All right, so let's get into the power of intention when we are detraining. It's really about that psychological and mental approach. So I think the understanding how quickly or not you will lose strength and muscle and making sure that you're doing those things intentionally with your nutrition to do everything that you can and understand that you're not going to lose everything overnight or in 1 week or even in 2 weeks, that you can take some time off and you're not going to lose everything, I think is the first psychological piece to make sure that you're able to stay in a good place mentally and emotionally. Because like I said, especially if you're someone like me, I put a lot of time and energy and a lot of my mental health goes into what I'm able to do physically. Having that time for myself and then having that stripped away and being unsure of what your physical abilities are even going to be can be very difficult. I think just having that psychological approach that you're not going to lose it all, it will come back, can be very good. Another thing I did was reframing my time off as strategic recovery. I've been pushing very hard for a significant period of time. Since I really started powerlifting about a year ago, I really ramped it up and I haven't taken a break since that started. It's been a ton of heavy lifting, obviously a lot of stress on the joints. Hello to my right elbow and just things like that. So I took it as, okay, I can actually let my muscles and my tendons and my joints just have this period of recovery. And maybe it is needed right now. Maybe I do need to take some time and let my body recover. If you're traveling and you're concerned about the time off, be like, okay, this is recovery for everything. I'm going to de-stress mentally, emotionally, physically. Just going to let everything de-stress, take the strategic recovery. And when I come back, I'll hit it really hard. Maybe it's a 2-week vacation and you're not going to lose everything. Having that mindset shift, shifting to a positive mindset. It's what you tell people when they get injured, not like surgically injured, but if you tweak something, if you tweak your back, your hamstring, something like that, being able to reframe that that you're going to be okay. You're not broken. It's not over forever. You just need to reassess, regress to progress, and you'll be fine. That mindset shift is huge, just like this one is. So it's not time off. I'm not lazy. I'm taking strategic recovery. I'm giving my body the chance to rest, recover, and I'm going to come back stronger. Those visualization techniques can be really good. Continuing to keep that intention on the things that you're doing in the gym, the things that you would be doing in the gym, visualizing your lifts, thinking about how your muscles move, that mind muscle connection. You can almost visualize that when you get to a certain point. I think it's just keeping fitness on the top of your mind and maintaining that fitness mindset of moving your body, thinking about how your body moves, keeping it on the top of your mind so that you get back to it, so that this time off doesn't derail everything completely. If we just let it go from our life and say, I'm busy, so fitness just isn't a part of my life, and we let ourselves detrain physically and mentally, it's going to be even harder to. So making sure that you maintain that, and then trying to maintain some form of movement, whatever form of movement that is, whether it's getting steps in, maybe you can only do cardio because that's all you have access to, but finding something to do to maintain that fitness mindset and maintaining your nutrition as much as possible so that you continue to feel good about what you're doing for your body. You don't end up getting bloated or feeling that watery feeling in your stomach. I think maintaining that fitness mindset and visualizing yourself as somebody who's into fitness can be very helpful. Finding something else to focus your time on, whatever that might be, whether it's yourself, your job, your relationships, finding something else to focus your time on and be productive in some way. Even if you're on vacation, you can find ways to almost productively de-stress. The mental piece of it is actually letting go and letting yourself relax and de-stress. That can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially now with social media and fear of missing out and fear of being lazy. You see all these people like, you gotta grind. Sometimes rest is actually what you need, and forcing yourself to do that is an important thing to be able to do. So thinking about any of those kind of things to make sure that you maintain a healthy mental approach for yourself. And some of the things that you can do is journaling, just how you're feeling about not training, why you're feeling that way, is it valid? Having those kind of things written down out of your head so you're not just constantly stewing with those thoughts. Journal those down, set different goals during your recovery. For me, with a right arm injury, there's not a whole lot that I can really do, but I can still do stuff with my legs. I can still do stuff with the other side of my body. So I'm setting goals for that. I'm setting myself like daily movement goals. I'm setting myself goals for my relationship and my mental health that I want to be able to focus on, since I'm not putting as much mental energy into training. I'm still going to get in the gym and move because it's really big for my mental health. Taking those 3 weeks off and then getting back into the gym was a game changer for my mental health. So I'm going to get in and make sure I move my body because I've realized how good that is for me, but it's not going to be a 3-hour chunk of my day. Is not going to be eating a meal, getting to the gym, working out for 2 hours, taking an hour after to recover. I don't need to do all of that. I just need to get in and move my body. It's going to be part of my life, but there's other things I'll focus on. And then finding motivation during training and setting those goals. My goal at the end of the day is to maintain as much of my physical and mental health as I can. Once I get to go ahead and start using this arm, it's going to be to recover it. So that'll be a new motivation, but finding ways to keep that motivation. And then lastly, the power of action. This ties in well to the intention piece and that psychological piece. We can get that right and then actually take the action steps that we set for ourselves. So once we set up those goals, we make sure that we take those actions. So what are the minimum levels, the minimum actionable steps we can take to maintain our fitness? Can we get that 1/9 of our volume? Can we do reduced range of motion exercises if something hurts? Can we work on those isometrics? Can we progress those? Taking those little actionable steps What are the things we can do with our nutrition? How many steps can I get in a day? Am I able to still do that? Do I need to just relax? Do I need to actually let go? That's action in a way when you do it for a specific purpose. So thinking about that, just setting that minimum level for yourself. If you're listening to this podcast, you're someone that already probably trains. I'm guessing there's not too many people listening that haven't started training yet. So understanding that you have been training, you're not going to lose everything. Periods of detraining are for a reason. Your life is busy, you're traveling, you're injured, whatever it is, there's a reason for that. So what is the lowest barrier to entry that you can stick with that can help you maintain your physical strength, muscle mass as much as possible, and then make it easy to get back to full go once you get to that point in your life, making sure that you can continue to do that and being actionable in your recovery, whether it is rest, whether it's rehab exercises, whether it's your nutrition, getting steps, making sure that you're focused on that end goal, the end of the detraining period. So I am doing this to recover. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I recover as well as possible and I am set up for success when I get back to training. Never at any point do we think, oh, training is just over for me. I'm just done. Like either because you got injured or because your life is so busy. You can't ever let training be a thing that doesn't exist in your life. You're still a person that trains. You just can't right now. So having that approach in mind allows you to say, okay, I am recovering for when I get back to training, not if I get back to training. Figure out what those actionable steps are. Understand exactly what you're doing right now that has built you to this point and have that backup plan of what is the minimum level that I need to do or that I'm willing to do. No matter what happens in my life, there is a minimum level of training. Having conversations with a coach, whether you're injured or you need to adjust training of how to do that properly so that you can make sure that you have a plan. Because without the plan, the action steps are much more difficult. If you have that plan laid out, you can take action much easier. So I think that's a really good way to go to make sure that you take action during this period to make sure you maintain your fitness as much as you possibly can. All right, to recap what we've gone through in this podcast. So with detraining, you are not going to lose strength as quickly as you think. It will take at least 3 to 4 weeks, probably closer to 4 if you're relatively trained and not over the age of 60. We don't need to worry so much about that detraining period as long as we can do some things to make sure that we get some minimum level of mental and physical work to make sure that we can come back and keep those motor skills, those neurological skills. The muscle force, we know with muscle mass also not going away even as quickly as strength, possibly. I think muscle retention will last a little bit longer. The longer or the more muscle mass you have, the longer that muscle retention process will be, making sure that you keep your protein intake high, trying to do some minimum maintenance level of work if you can, minimal range of motion exercises, cross body exercises, getting any muscular work that you can, and making sure your nutrition stays on point. You can drop your calories a little bit, maybe 10 to 15%, keeping your protein as high as possible, carbohydrates at a reasonable level to make sure that you have that glycogen for fuel, plenty of healthy fats to maintain hormone health, which will only help you in maintaining your muscle mass and just keeping you healthy in general. Possibly eating more whole foods, trying to avoid inflammatory process type of foods, and getting plenty of micronutrients for your body. Make sure that you focus your intentions properly, shifting that focus from time off to strategic recovery with the intention to get back to training. Those visualization techniques that we talked about to help keep those motor skills, neurological connections, mind-muscle connections, whatever it might be, the visualization of being able to do those exercises. And again, with that intention of getting back to training, maintaining that fitness mindset, keeping your nutrition in order, doing whatever maintenance level, minimum level, just getting steps in, getting movement, being a person who is still fitness minded, journaling, goal setting, and making sure that you have that end goal of getting back to training in mind. Then making sure that you take action during this period, whatever those minimum action steps are, making sure that you take them. Even if rest is the action step, taking that action and actually resting and being okay with that and using it as actual strategic recovery can be great. Taking that action can also make you feel very good about yourself. If you have periods in your life where you may be detraining, you can always book a call with me. Go to how old am I? Book a call. We can talk about how to fit this fitness routine into your life and deal with periods of detraining so that you can make sure you're always on task and getting back to it. Book a call. Let's talk about it. Look me up on social media at CoachQ_fitness. Send me a DM anytime. Ask me questions. I'm Coach Q on Facebook, at CoachQ_fitness on YouTube. Please rate, subscribe to the channel. Like, rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and ask me those questions about periods of detraining, the recovery process, whatever you want. Ask me those Qs. This is the Lifting Qs podcast, so I want to answer your questions. Whenever you have them, send me a DM, let me know, and I'll answer them right here on the podcast. And until next week, lifters, I hope you're training, but if you're not, it's okay. I'll see you next week.